Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. We got the Ram 1500 in the shop today. It's got some problems with the parking brakes. Let's have a look. Here you can see here the cable's all hanging down. So let's see what we can find out. So here we are under the dash. We can see the cable is engaged in the holder and the pedal. And you can see up there, the little ball on the end is engaged in the pedal and it moves. Let's see if we can, where's the release? There. So we're going to go back underneath and see what we can find out. I'm kind of leaning toward the problem being inside here. This is the lever. And the slot that the lever's in goes all the way back to my finger here. That's where it should theoretically return to when you release the brake. And this one is not. It's kind of around halfway, and it's really stiff. It doesn't want to move either way. So we're going to go ahead and pull the calipers and the rotors off and see what we see inside there. So we're going to start by removing our clippy thing. Look, our original truck here still has the clippy things on it. Wow. And then I'm hoping I don't have to take the calipers off the brackets. I'm hoping I can get at the bolts and just take bracket, caliper, everything off in one shot, and we'll hang it off a bungee cord. That'd sure make life a lot easier, wouldn't it? Let's see. Back here. Oh yeah, there's one bolt. And there's the other bolt. Yeah, so I'm just going to stick a bar in there and see if I can pull the piston back just to give us a little wiggle room. I'll pull those two bolts and we'll get this caliper off of here. Here's the first thing I see. The back brakes are fried almost down to the metal. And they should not be like that on a low-mile truck like this. So we can assume we've got the usual Chrysler sticky slider pin problems. We'll have to deal with that. So for sure I got to order a set of brake pads for this thing. So here we can see our problem. You can see there the parking brake lever is sitting like that when it should be like that because the pivot pin inside it is probably seized. So I'm going to try and knock it back the other way and see if we can get these shoes to close up. So that is causing two problems. Number one, it was probably dragging the parking brake shoes when we were driving. And number two, it's making the cables hang down. So I'm going to just give this a little tap back. Let's see if we can get it back to its prone position or released position. And I'll be back in a sec. Then on this side, when I was banging on the brake lever to move it back, look what happened. Super duper. So we need a set of park brake shoes too. I'm going to have to pull the axles out to get at the this. There's no way to do this while it's, while the axle is in. At least we accomplished one thing. Getting these levers pushed back to the release position has got our cables pulled back up into the frame where they're supposed to be. So now we know what the problem was. So I've been up to Canadian Tire. I got brake pads, parking brake shoes, the hardware kit for the parking brake shoes. I had in stock a good used set of nice free, these are Dorman, they've already been replaced, actuating levers, and a brand new pair of booties for them. We got the correct 75 W140 GL5 synthetic lube that the owner's manual calls for, and it is limited slip rated, so that's good. And as far as the brake rotors go, we were able to get them on the lathe, and we got them cleaned up, no problem. So we'll be all set. I just got to get the other rotor cleaned up now. I'm making the final cut now on the drum. It doesn't have to be perfect in there. Just so long as it's round and it's smooth, that'll let us get the parking brake set up. And we don't want to take a whole bunch of material out of there for no reason. And then anyway, once this cut is done, we're going to switch to the rotor cutter, and we'll cut the actual rotor. Oh, we're moving right along, just taking small cuts at a time. All right, that's the rotors done. Now we can start working on the actual truck. Alrighty, now before we do anything else, we need to get the axles out. So we're going to have to get in here inside the differential to get the C-clips off the axles to pull them out. So to do that, all the oil is going to come out. Traditionally on a rear end, you would just start taking the bolts out, leave a couple in the top and pry it off at the bottom, and the stuff would all come out. But this one actually has a drain plug here on the side of it. So you need a 14 millimeter hex key to get that out of there. And if you don't have that, don't sweat it. Just take the bolts out of the cover like we would normally do. And out it comes, $30 a friggin' liter. That stuff could have been able to stay in there for ages. And quite frankly, I guess, if I would have drained it into a clean pan, I probably could use a suction gun and just put it right back in. But we're in here anyway, so we'll put new stuff. Well, now I'm going to go around, take all the bolts out, and see how the cover comes off. I don't know on this if it's got a nice reusable gasket like the big one in the dually has, or if this is glued on there with the Chrysler glue that you need an air chisel to break. Judging by the orange mess around that bolt up there, my guess is that it's glued on, but that could just be sealer on the bolt threads too. We'll know in a minute. Yeah, I got all the bolts out, well, except for 2 at the top to keep the cover from falling right down. And that thing is stuck on there like nobody's business, so I guess it's got the old Chrysler glue from hell on it. That actually wasn't on there too bad. It popped right off with a putty knife. Not like that stuff they use on the transmission pans on the front wheel drive cars. Oh, some of the battles I've had with those guys have taken chunks of the case off trying to get those things out. Oh, anyway, next thing we have to do is turn the diff so we can get the little retaining bolt out, so we can get the cross shaft out. But I think this has got the goofy electronic dial shifter for the transmission, so I'll probably have to go in and put the transfer case in neutral so I can turn it. We'll find out. After a bunch of screwing around, I finally managed to get the transfer case to go into neutral. Now what we have to do, you see this bolt here, that's the bolt that holds the cross shaft for the pinion gears in. So we have to get this bolt out. And like everything else in this, it seems to have a whole bunch of Loctite on it. But that's okay, we'll get her out. So here we are, we got it. And that's what it looks like when it comes out. So now what we're going to do is spin the differential. Easier said than done. We're going to spin this differential around so we can get this pin out. Usually you got to push it one way or the other and then work it around so you can grab the other end of it. Or, you know what, I'm going to see if... Oh, there, it came out by itself. Look at that. Right in the soup. Awesome. So now, once you got that out, you can see there is the end of the axle shaft. And if we push that in, you'll see the C-clip. So we come over here, push the axle shaft in, and I think I heard the C-clip fall out. Let's see here. Yeah, there it is. Well, it half fell out. I gotta grab it with a magnet. Hang on. Here's our C-clip. I fished it out with a magnet. Now, once we've got the C-clip out, then our axle shaft just comes out. I'll get the one out of the other side, and then we can get to work on our parking brakes. Next thing we're going to do before we start our work, we're going to put a wadded up towel in there, because that right in there, that's our wheel bearing, and we don't want all this rust and crap all falling down in there. And while we're working, we have to be cognizant of this on either side. That is our wheel speed sensor. We don't want to break those or cause them any harm, or that'll be that'll be another job for us to do. You can see here it's got double return springs on this, and that still was not enough to pull this back because this lever assembly here is seizing up. We'll show you that when we get in there. First thing we got to do is go under the cab here to the equalizer and take all the tension off the brake cables so we can do our work here. So this is what we have to deal with. The adjusting nut on the equalizer is all the way down in there, and to sit here for hours and hours with a wrench is not going to be any fun. So what I did, I made a super deep socket. I just got two crappy old sockets, welded a piece of tube in between them. Now I can spin this nut right off of here. There we go. Now that'll give us all the slop that we need to be able to do our work. Now we could take the parking brake apart. So something to note, the parking brake is identical side to side. If you go to the other side, you'll notice that the actuator is at the top and the adjuster is on the bottom. It's the same assembly, just flipped over. So what we're going to do is slowly try to get this thing taken apart. And it is not going to be fun because it's probably all seized. The other side, I already did the other side. I wanted to get one side under my belt before I showed you guys this side. You can try to take all these springs off. Or if you've gone ahead and bought a new hardware kit, it's up to you. You can just zip wheel them. That's fine. And it'll come apart way easier. All right, now we've got, after a lot of prying and poking and pulling and wrecking stuff, we've got all that old junk off. Now all that's left is the actuator, or the lever assembly. And you'll see there, it's got like a... I'm sorry, it's really hard to film this stuff under here. There's a good view of it there. It's got a hook. So you can see, that's why, where did it go? There. That's why we release the tension on the cable. See, you just go like that, and out it comes. Now we can pull this guy out of here. Come on. There we go. And you'll see, it is seized tight. Here's our new good used one. You can see how floppy, and it's floppy, it's loose. So anyway, we're going to, the first step of this job, we're going to get our wire brush and clean up this backing plate. And then we could start putting the parts back in. We need to clean up this and these grooves where the shoes go. We've got everything slathered up with anti-seize here, and we've knocked the adjuster plug out because that's how we'll do our adjustment when we're done. Now we've got this thing slathered up and got the anti-seize worked into the pivot, and it goes in like that, through that little booty to the outside world. Now we're going to hook the rear spring into the back of the shoes, and you can see it goes with the long tail away from that, or long tail to the rear. There we go. And now we're going to hang these on here. You got to kind of stretch it over and get everything engaged. I'll show you what it's supposed to look like once we're done. And it goes together just like that. You can see here how they engage the lever. Now we're going to assemble the adjuster and get that popped in at the top. This guy goes together like that, and that's which way he's going to point. So what we do now, this is our spring. That's got to go in there. And then we're going to spread the shoes apart and pop with the spring in there. It takes a couple of fingers because you can see this thing wants to collapse the springs. But anyway, we'll get there. We're gonna get it spread apart and get the adjuster popped in. Just like that. Now I'm gonna put the hold downs in. The These are a little bit different than the factory ones. These ones, you compress them and turn them, whereas the factory ones, where's one? They just pop on. If these are in good shape, these are a lot easier to work with. You may want to consider reusing those, but I just put these on. I've used them before, and I haven't had any trouble with them. Once the hold downs are on, then we can put our second spring on, just like that. Now the last thing we have to do is reach behind and hook the S hook of the cable back on. And then that's this part of it done. Now we can stick the axle back in. I just put a little grease around the lip of the seal. And then we'll carefully slide it in and engage the spline and push it all the way in so we can put the C-clip on. Don't turn it too much or the spider gears will fall out. Then you got to screw around turning everything for a minute to get them back in. It's not the end of the world, but it happens. With the axle pushed in all the way, we're able to put the C-clip in. And you'll see here it's got a you can see the witness mark where the axle shaft has been rubbing against that side. So that's the way we're going to put it back. It just hooks on there. And then with our other finger, oh, almost got it. Sometimes, man, these axles get stuck there good. Okay, there we are. We've got it balanced perfectly on the top. Sometimes you can just push the axle back with your fingers, but this one, it's stuck on the seal a bit maybe. So we'll go out there and just grab the axle and give it a sharp pull. There. And that seats our C-clip. Now we need to carefully turn this because we don't want to lose our spider gears. There. We got to have it out of position where we can get the cross shaft in. There. We need to stop it out of position where we can get the cross shaft in and get access to our little screw here. So, the cross shaft. Let's see. Is the sway bar in the way or the track bar? Yeah. Oh, no. There we go. You got to jiggle this stuff around a little bit just to get it to start. Give me a sec. Now, once the cross shaft is in, we can install our little screw here and tighten it up. Now we can clean up all this old sealer and get the cover back on. I got the a nice bead of black RTV all the way around it. We're just going to let that sit out here and skin up. While that's doing that, we're going to go in and get the parking brake all adjusted up. First thing we can do is slide the rotor over this and just kind of get a feel for it. We can do some of the rough adjustment right here by hand at the adjuster before we get into doing it from underneath with the brake spoon. You can feel there it's got just a tiny bit of drag. We're going to stop there for now and we'll just hold the rotor on. You have to put like a big old nut on there just to make up for the thickness of the wheel, or else the stud will come out the back of your lug nut. There. Yeah, that's pretty good. It might have a little drag now, but the first couple of times you cycle the pedal, everything will kind of center itself up and that drag will go away. Now we're going to go underneath and wind the equalizer back up. Okay, we'll wind this thing up. I'll see if I'm going to wind it up as much as they had it wound up, but we'll figure that out. This thing here is not for adjusting the parking brake. It's for taking the slack out of the cables. You adjust the parking brake with the star wheels in the wheels. Well, honestly, where they had it was where I had to take it to get everything to stop drooping. So I'm going to hop in the truck now and give the pedal a couple of good pokes, and we'll see what happens. Let's see how this thing feels. Wow, that's pretty good. Our adjustment is good. Yeah, the second time it went down a little further because everything kind of got, centralized. and settled in. But no, that's perfect. That's good. We can put the plugs in the adjuster holes, and that's that done. Now we're going to do the service brakes. All right, we've got our service brakes here. The first thing we're going to do is make these brake pads a little more salt belt friendly. So what has happened with this? It was not these brakes are sticky, and that's why they're so fried. They should have lasted 2 or 3 times longer than this. But what happens here in the salt belt, you've got your stainless steel liners there, but rust starts to build up in behind them, and that rust pushes on this, which pushes on this, and literally locks down the brake pads so they can't move. You'll see when we get to this what a hell of a time we're going to have knocking those things out of there. So the first thing we're going to do is get these brake pads, and both ends of them we're going to use a square file, and you don't have to remove a ton of material. You just get in there and take a little bit. That's all you got to do. We never had these problems on the older cars because the brakes, well, aside from the rear disc brakes on those GM front wheel drive cars in the 80s and 90s, it was like class action lawsuits and everything. Aside from those, the brakes used to be pretty loose, and this stuff wouldn't happen. But over the years, number one, the noise, vibration, and harshness, guys, we can't have the brakes going click. That's no good. So they started tightening them up. Plus, with the ABS and stuff, you can't have ABS and loose floppy brakes. It just won't work. So they've tightened everything up to the point where you get in the salt belt and the rust starts hanging them up. Now watch this. I'll show you how tight these brake pads are in this thing. Look at, I gotta whack them with a hammer to get them out. Just terrible. You can see in there how tight they've been. Now we'll be taking our little inserts off, and all you gotta remember with these is they're left and right. They've got a little offset to them, so just be aware of that when you're putting it back together. So that's the one for this end. You can see there. See the offset in them? Now we'll get these guys off, and look here. See the rust in behind them? That doesn't look like much, but it's enough to start pushing and taking up that what little clearance they had. So we're going to get this all cleaned up. We're going to touch all 3 sides of this with the file again to not really like grind it away. Just take off a tiny bit to give it a little clearance. So now I've got them cleaned up, put some anti-seize on them to protect it a bit, and we'll pop these guys on. Now, where did I put my brake pads? The brake pads, inner and outer, it's the same pad. So we just get them in there, and they got to get up underneath them anti-rattlers. Now we can put our caliper adapter on. And we're getting it, and these bolts are going to torque up to 130 foot-pounds. And there we go. Alrighty. Now, what we got to do is just pull these pads together. See how much easier they move now. Now we can turn our attention to the caliper. So now, there's a couple of things we need to do with the caliper. Number one, we have to make sure the sliders are free, right? Just like that. Nice and free. They'll have a little bit of drag on them, don't get me wrong, but they can't be. See that one there? Oh, there we go. All right. Now what we're going to do is shove the piston back. Yes, there's a tool you can buy for it. I don't have one. This is my tool. You just don't want to, this is a phenolic piston. You don't want to work directly on it with the pliers because you'll crack it or chip it or break it. But you just go like that. And you want to make sure that that goes in relatively easy like that. Then we're going to make sure we haven't got any of our hoses or anything twisted. And this thing goes in like that. It's got a catch underneath there. And then up like that. Now, our pin bolts, we're just going to slather them up with anti-seize. And these guys, 25 to 30. The book said 30. And I don't know if it's my torque wrench off a little bit, but 30 was feeling a little stretchy. So I did them at 25 on my torque wrench. Yours may vary. Once we've got everything all back together and torqued, then we got to go inside the truck and just give the brake pedal a few easy pushes down to get the pistons pushed back out and all the slop taken out so that the first time you go to try and move it, you actually have brakes. Our sealant has skinned up nicely, so I'm going to go under there now, put the cover on, get the bolts tightened, and then it's just a rubber plug. We'll pull that up and fill it up. Now we've pulled the plug out of the rear end cover. It's just a little rubber plug. It's about halfway up. And we're going to start squirting this stuff in until it overflows. And that's how you know it's full. Oh boy, finally. All done. So now I'm going to put the wheels back on, let it on the floor, torque them up, take it for a test drive, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Our road test went off without a hitch. We went down to Claremont to get some gas in our jerry cans so we can mow the grass. Made it there and back. No funny noises, no trouble at all. So I guess that's that. That was a whole lot of work, man, for two stupid seized little levers, eh? Anyway, what are you going to do? That they decided they didn't need to have drum brakes on the back of them anymore, so this is what we get now. That'll wrap it up for that one then. I'm going to go in and have a nice dinner and watch TV for a while. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.